every other system since the Nintendo 64 has been a huge success. And every system between them was a flop. And looking at that pattern, the next system after the Switch should be a flop. So what could Nintendo do to stop history from repeating itself, and to break the curse? And I know things have changed a lot since even just the Wii U days, but there were real reasons why these consoles failed. And I think the odds of the next system being a failure are higher than you might think. So what did these consoles do wrong, and could that happen to the next system? A lot of the problems that the GameCube faced came from bad timing. The GameCube had to go up against the original Xbox and the PlayStation 2, which is the most successful console of all time. I don't think the next system is going to have a very big problem with competitors, but at the same time, it does need to make sure that it establishes its own identity. That way, it doesn't get overshadowed by anything that would be considered stronger. But the GameCube also suffered under the perception that it was kiddie, which was a much bigger issue for Nintendo back in the day. Now that has kind of become the charm of Nintendo. They're not worried about making a game mature, they're worried about making a game enjoyable. And with Nintendo's recent push of Metroid, and other more mature franchises, and with there being a probability of Metroid Prime 4 being a launch title on the next system, I don't think that's going to be an issue. But now we face my biggest worry. Backwards compatibility. The GameCube was not backwards compatible to the Nintendo 64. The Switch wasn't backwards compatible either, but it really didn't have too many games to be backwards compatible with. The Wii U didn't have the largest of libraries, and most of the games on the Wii U were ported to the Switch, with Mario Kart 8 even managing to become the highest selling Switch game. But the Switch has a huge library. We have every single Pikmin game. We have every 3D Mario game except Mario Galaxy 2. And many more games that I'm honestly surprised received remakes or ports. And if we lose that library with the next system, that is going to be a loss. And I'm almost worried that it's going to happen for one reason: the MIG Switch cart. This thing is able to mimic a Nintendo Switch cartridge perfectly. You don't need to mod your system. It uses the individual, unique identification that each game card has, which means if someone copies their game and then sells the original copy, then two people would have essentially the exact same game. And if you went online, I'm sure it would not be very hard for Nintendo to find you and ban your console. And so I almost feel like this is the biggest reason Nintendo would want to change their cartridge for the next system. And if the next system is hybrid, it would make more sense to not include a Switch cartridge slot as well. So I feel like this could possibly be the biggest issue for the next system. I'm not exactly sure how the MIG Switch cart situation is going to play out, but Nintendo is not just going to ignore it. The next system is going to have some way of preventing people from using it, and that may be removing the Switch cart slot. The Wii U faced a lot of the same issues that the GameCube did. However, it was backwards compatible, which is the reason I own one. I own the Wii U mainly to play Wii games, but the Wii U did have some other major issues. The biggest one being marketing. The system has a very bad name, and as much as I love it, in the fact that it is a play on words, it is a poor name for marketing. If you're not familiar with what the system is, you're very likely to get it confused with just an add-on to the Wii or a different version of that console. You're not very likely to look at the Wii U and think, oh yeah, that's completely different from the Wii. The consoles were too similar in name and design. And that is one of my biggest worries for the next system, is that it's going to be too similar to the Switch. And what makes this situation so much worse is the fact that I can't think of any gimmick that is better than the Switch already is. So they have to change the system enough to where you don't get it confused with the Switch. But if they change it too much and it's not a hybrid console anymore, that's going to be a downgrade from the Switch even if it has more power. So Nintendo is having to walk a very fine line here between changing it too much and changing it too little. There are some changes that I think would improve the next system no matter what. Online is one of them. If the next system has a free online service, that is only going to help it. My biggest complaint about the Switch is the online service. I don't mind paying a monthly subscription to have access to retro games or extra Mario Kart tracks, but when I have to pay to use online in games that mainly use online, it should not be that way. At least give it to us for free for games like Splatoon. But something else that I feel the Wii U suffered from that may also affect the next console is being unnecessary. Why do companies make new consoles in the first place? There are many reasons, I'm sure, but I think the reason that most people will give is the technology's gotten better. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, but I think the biggest reason is sales. Like I mentioned earlier, the PlayStation 2 is the highest selling console of all time. And if we assume 155 million people is the max number of people that want to own a gaming console, that once you reach these numbers, you're not going to sell any more consoles, because everybody that wants to buy one has already bought one. So it only makes sense that if you want to keep bringing in a profit from console sales, that you need to make a new one. And so I think the Wii U exists mainly because they needed something new to sell, not because they think the Wii U is 100% better than the Wii, or because they wanted to make games that needed a console with more power, although both of those are factors, but mainly because they wanted to sell a new console. And I can't blame them too much, they are a business, their goal is to bring in a profit. And I'm not saying the Wii U was completely worthless. Some of my favorite games of all time are on the Wii U, such as Pikmin 3. But because the Wii U wasn't such a huge success, it left the door open for the Switch to fulfill what the Wii U should have. The Switch is a genius system for so many reasons, and although it does have some issues, like the online service, most of them can be fixed with a simple update. And so the only reasons that I can think of for why you would want to end the Switch is A, you want to make a console that has more power, and B, the Switch is already close to its max number of sales, so let's go ahead and make the next console. Neither one of those are the reasons why I would want Nintendo to make a new console, but I think a lot of people do want to see a system with more power. And I will admit, I am very curious myself, but I feel like if the next system has games on it that could have very well just been played on the Switch, then I feel like it's going to be a lot harder to justify making us all buy a new console simply to play the most recent Mario game. But if the next system has games on it that need a unique controller configuration, or something unique that that system offers such as a dual screen, then it's going to be a lot more understandable why we needed a new console to play the next Mario game. All of this is completely just my speculation, so don't take any of it as fact, and feel free to disagree with me in the comments, but I do fear for the next console. If Nintendo doesn't know what they're doing, it will not be good. But they have been working these past 7 years since the Switch was launched, so I'm pretty confident Nintendo knows what they're doing next. All that's left is to wait and see.